Hi everybody. Quick video here to talk about criteria A of your IA rubric and how you might go about making your sections of your analysis that deal with criteria A a bit stronger, a bit more efficient. I'm going to model how I'm going through that process, and then you will want to go do the same thing. So the first thing I want to do is review the description of criteria A because I want to know what it is that I'm looking for. So you can find this rubric on the A Sample IA activity on Empower. It shows you the rubric and describes the descriptions. You can also find the rubric in the IA folder that can be found where the units are found as well. That link is on Empower and Google Classroom. So when we look at criteria A, the title of it is Knowledge, Understanding, and Interpretation. And it says, how well does the candidate demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the extracts and of the works or texts from which they were taken? So how well do you understand the 40-line sets that you picked? So based on your use of character names, specific details, and your interpretation of moments will sort of illustrate how well you understand the text. This does not mean that you need to summarize the text or that you need to spend a lot of time explaining what is happening, right? Those should be quick bouts of thought so that it's clear that you understand what you're looking at. Secondly, to what extent does the candidate make use of knowledge and understanding of the extracts and the work text to draw conclusions in relation to the global issue? So how am I using the facts of the text in order to connect them, put them together, to draw a conclusion, to come up with this big sort of theory or understanding that I have about a particular global issue? Third, how well are ideas supported by references to the extracts and to the works and texts? So how well am I actually proving that this global issue exists, and am I referencing the text enough to talk about it? If you're just sitting there talking about your global issue the whole time and not actually dealing with the text and breaking down the text, then you are not actually analyzing. So it's like this fine line to walk, right? In my example that you all watched, I did a great job of sort of breaking down and connecting to the text. I connected to the text very well. I was always headed back to the text, probably a little too much. We'll cover that in the next segment. But for now, I want to focus on the improvements that I can make. So based on the feedback that you all gave me on my evaluation, I identified sort of three main things that I need to do. This is all of your feedback. I've been sitting and reading it. Okay, so three main things that I need to do to ensure that my criteria A is stronger and added into my next practice. First and foremost, across the board, it's clear that I do not have a clear global issue context. Like, I don't spend any time talking about what loneliness and isolation even is and why it's a global issue. Like, why is this thing a problem? Why am I even talking about it? I need to make sure that I'm focused more on that bigger picture and connecting back to it throughout my analysis. I need more connection to the bigger picture. Secondly, a lot of you talked about the fact that I maybe need a bit more character description and background so that the evaluator can better understand where I'm coming from, especially if they haven't read the text. All right, and the third one is reduce my repetition of ideas and time spent saying those things. So as you probably know, because you've had me for at least a year now, I tend to repeat myself. So I need to work on making sure I'm more concise with my points. There's a couple things I'm considering as I move through this process. Number one, I don't want to add too much of any of these things. I don't want to turn this into a summary or an infomercial about this global issue. So I need to sort of place it carefully throughout my analysis so that it's there, but it's not an overwhelming factor that's present in my piece. So I want to think about where I'm going to add these things. So I'm the kind of person that likes to write things as I talk. So I printed my analysis page and I did my annotating on there, and I will go back in and add it into my analysis document in the coming days. Part of why I like to annotate on a written piece is that I can do my first roll of thinking and then in a day come back to it and see if I have any additional thoughts or if something I wrote down maybe isn't quite right and I can adjust it. So initially you'll see here that at the top I've added in my focused aspect of my global issue, the fact that it's more addressing the aspect of like how to move through loneliness and isolation. Okay. And then the next place I'm going to head is my context row. So this first row of the document, context, right, is where you're going to sort of start talking about the context of your work, of the text you're looking at. So here, I'm going to add in some general understanding of what loneliness and isolation is, how it is sort of bleeding into every part of everyone's life, but we don't really seem to talk about it. There's no major focus on mental health in our society. So people who are lonely or isolated tend to continue in that cycle because they feel shame about talking about it. And both of these authors sort of speak to that idea. And so we're never really taught how to deal with loneliness and isolation. It's just that we all have it and it's like this thing. So additionally, in this context area, I'm going to add in some details about my characters for my first text, what their conflict is, what they're going through. I am not going to spend more than 1 or 2 sentences on this, but that will help provide some more understanding of what's happening in this story so that this moment makes more sense. I'm also going to head into my analysis pieces and see in my conclusion, my why row. Let's see if I can get this up here. Okay, so my why, guys, this is funny. My why row, right? And I'm going to see if I can add things into the why that make a bit more sense and that allow for that connection to the bigger picture, to the bigger global issue. So in this first intentional element I break down about the light and it illuminating hope, this is how one person could like move through pain of loneliness and isolation, is by, you know, looking for light, looking for those light things and letting that shine some hope. And then I also added in my context for my second text, right, I'm going to add some information about maybe about Billy and like who she is and how she is so like sort of typically known for her honest portrayal of the tough parts of life. That could be a nice contextual piece that lets my audience know what they're expecting here. Additionally, I'll also sort of say a point about how we see loneliness in everyday stuff like music. And we're typically not talking about it in our normal lives, but it's clearly a part of what everyone's experiencing. And then and then I also added here that this moment is a description of her experience of isolation versus the moment where she's actually coping with it. So I'm going to make clear as to what is a description or the author addressing just like what it is and what it's like to go through it. And then secondly, okay, so then this is how this author suggested this character move through it, right? Because they wrote the character. Lastly, I'm going to head to my conclusion and make sure that looks solid. And actually in my conclusion, I focus more on that global issue already. So that looks solid to me and I'm going to leave it. So what I need to now do is head into my plan digitally and add in some statements, short phrases. Remember, you're not doing full sentences here. This is just a plan. It's supposed to be short phrases. Okay, so I'm going to go add in some short phrases into my plan that address those bigger ideas around the global issue and address some of the background about the characters and the conflicts so that it's clear as to what's going on here. Once I do that, then I know that my criteria A is looking solid. So then we're ready to move on to criteria B. So now it's your turn. You're going to first reread the description of criteria A. Second, you're going to look back at your evaluation that you did and determine for criteria A, what could you have done better? Then head back to your plan. If you don't have one of these plans, make one. Make a copy of mine, use it as a guide, and use it as an example for what you would replace with your own content. return back to that plan, add in the pieces of context and the connection to global issue that might be missing, and then get ready to move on to criteria B. That'll be next class. Good luck. Email me if you have questions. I'm always here to help. Take care.